Okay, let's try and unpack this now with Thembisa Fakude, who's a senior research fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogues. That's an independent think tank, and he joins me live on the line from Johannesburg. Welcome. The ECOWAS delegation, it just turned around and left. It was certainly a surprise to me. I don't know about you. Does that mean the time for diplomacy is now over?
I think the time for diplomacy is over. They're all now preparing themselves for the next move. They've threatened the military intervention, and I think we are likely to see that happening. I saw in your clip that played not long ago. The Senegalese are all hell-bent at joining the ECOWAS force to go and deal with the Junta in Niger. So I think days and time for diplomacy are almost over, which I think is a bad move. One would rather see elongated diplomatic effort instead of having to see the military intervention, because it is certainly going to be met by retaliation, not only from the junta in Niger, but you know that the Burkina Faso and the Guinea and Mali have also said that they will join in support of the junta in Niger.
You mentioned there the Senegalese foreign minister, certainly talking as if military action was almost inevitable. Do you believe that sort of aggressive rhetoric when you hear it, though? Is it bluff and bluster, or does ECOWAS actually have a history of following through on such threats?
Well, I think this time around, the situation is totally different. You have the United States, which is strongly behind the efforts of the ECOWAS, or supporting the ECOWAS, not necessarily supporting the military intervention. You have some of the Western countries, including France, that is also in support of this. But importantly is that this is a democratic elected president, which was ousted. But I think what makes matters even much more urgent is the advent of the Wagner Group in Niger. So that could see a different retaliation this time around, because, as you know, if the junta is allowed to continue as it is, it means that you have at least 3 countries in the region that will be getting assistance from the Wagner Group. That makes the situation much more difficult. And if they do entrench themselves, eventually the entire region will be forced to either retaliate or face some serious internal destabilization.
I think a question worth asking is about what the public wants. You know, you've talked about the democratic leader being removed, but I mean, we've seen sound bites and pictures of people celebrating on the streets and of people complaining about foreign interference. Do you think the public support this coup? And if they do, don't they have a right to choose who they want leading their country?
Well, it's an interesting question. I've heard some of the academics talking about the good coups and the bad coups. And for the first time, you have many of them saying that this is a good coup because it's got the large support of the population. But what sort of precedents are we setting here? Here is the democratic elected, one of the first, by the way, Niger, democratically elected president, forcibly removed by a junta. Now, there are other platforms and avenues in a democratic society where you are allowed to do that, but certainly not to the barrel of the gun. And if we do condone this and present it as is, it is indeed a new precedent, the new culture that we see emerging in that region. And if it's allowed to continue, unfortunately, we might just see more and more countries going through the same situation.
Thembisa, pleasure to speak to you. Appreciate your analysis. My guest, Thembisa Fakude, who's a senior research fellow at Africa-Asia Dialogue.